Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Before we get to see who's on, we have a super chat, massive super chat from McCarthan. Thank you so much. Go! Wonderful. Thank you so much for that super chat. Very kind of you. Have a great evening, McCarthan. Who else have we got on the stream? We got Hattie. Great to see you. Tadpole. Great to have you on. We also have Cami, Raven 1983 Witch, Anthony, Colin, Frankie, Killer, thanks for moderating once again. The Highlander is back. We have Enzo the God. Great to see you, Enzo. Aki's Mad. Great to see you. Norflinger. We have Chatty Rat. Great to see you, Chatty Rat. Catty. Great to see you, Catty. We have Gene T. John O'Sullivan. Stuart. Hi, Stuart. Katrina Bryce. Michelle. Yogan. Derek. Great to see you. Gerard, great to have you on. We have Roisin, great to see you, Roisin. Hope you're well. W&G Fan, great to have you on too. Fearless Wolf, great to see you once again. We have Giblets for the Cats, great to see you. Mega Hairy Bomb. Stagehand, great to see you. Young Ralph, great to have you on too. CJM, great to see you too. Hope you're all... And wow, we're up to 209 viewers, so I can't say hello to everyone, or I'll be here all night. So I want to say thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Hope you're having a great week. We have some good news and bad news, of course, in what's popped up today. Valerio, thank you so much for that super chat. Hi, Max. What do you think about the last by-elections? By the way, I'm afraid the US is risking a civil war over the overturning of Roe versus Wade and the hearings. Yes, I was going to talk a little bit about that later on, and I am very concerned about that. It seems the US is marching in the wrong direction. Now, I would have thought something like this would have happened under Donald Trump's presidency, but it's happening under Joe Biden's. And I have had my eye off the ball from the American perspective for a while now, since I really haven't talked about America since last January, I really think. You know, there have been a few stories that popped up from time to time, but generally I haven't been talking much about America, and things are heading in the wrong direction, it seems, unfortunately, and that's really concerning. About the by-elections, we're going to talk about that as well. A very good result for the Labour Party and the Lib Dems. A very bad day for Boris Johnson. So yesterday he lost two by-elections. The results come in today, and the chair of the Conservative Party resigned as well. And in his letter, he hinted that Boris Johnson should resign, or whoever's responsible. And obviously, either the chair is responsible or the leader of the party is responsible. And as the chair has resigned, I think he was hoping that this would be a catalyst for Boris Johnson to resign. But as we'll see later on, Johnson isn't going anywhere, which is probably good news in a sense for the Liberal Democrats, for the Labour Party, and for the SNP in Scotland, because the longer Boris Johnson stays in number 10, the better it is for the independence movement, because they say, look, this guy, he's not liked by his own party even, and he won't leave. You know, why should we stick around? You know, we can't get rid of this guy. Parliament can't get rid of Boris Johnson. The Labour Party can't get rid of him. The Lib Dems can't get rid of him. His own party can't get rid of him. So, you know, what's the point in sticking in the union? That will be one of the arguments that the SNP could use, or the independence movement. Thanks so much for that super chat. I got a notification. Reagan Ali, thank you so much, Reagan Ali. Today is a dark day for women in America. It is. I was going to talk a little bit more about it later, but I'll mention it now because some of you have brought it up. This is a victory for the evangelical movement in the US. They have been fighting to have Roe v. Wade overturned since the 1970s. And what will this ruling mean? It will mean that individual states will be able to ban abortion to their heart's content. And the country seems to be split pretty much 50-50. And it seems to be, of course, down political lines. So Democrat-leaning states are not going to ban abortion, while Republican-leaning states will. And this will mean that women, generally poorer women, will have to pay huge amounts of money to travel out of state to get abortions in other states. And you have to remember that the United States is not like the UK or Europe, where you can get access to medical care, if it's basic medical care, for free, or you pay very little. The US, if you don't have, your insurance might not cover you traveling outside of a state. You'll have to get an extra premium or an extra add-on or whatever. And if you're in a state, for example, Alabama, and you want to travel to New York State to get an abortion, your insurance provider may not cover you. So you'd actually have to pay all of the costs yourself. And if you're a poor person, you're not going to be able to afford that. So once again, it's going to be the rich people can just fly to the next state. They can just go out of state and have the abortion if they need it. While poorer women will not be able to do that. This is not pro-life, it's anti-woman, and especially anti-poor women. Thanks, Reagan Elite, yes. Christopher, thank you so much for that super chat. Very kind of you, Christopher. I hope you're having a good night. Love the beard. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. As the sign outside the Supreme Court of the United States today said, as a girl, I just hope that one day I have as many rights as a gun. Yes. Guns have more rights to protect them than women have. And this is part and parcel of this right-wing thinking in the United States. The problem, you can have a Democratic president, but you can have a Republic, but the problem is the Republicans hold the Senate, and they have a majority in the Supreme Court. As far as I know, I think the Senate is Republican. So it's a struggle for the Democratic president to get legislation through both houses. Through the House of Representatives, the Congress, the Democrats have a majority. But you can have legislation blocked in the Senate, but then you also have the Supreme Court as well. And when Trump was president, I think two Supreme Court judges died, and I was going to say Johnson. No, the other evil twin, Donald Trump, was able to nominate two Supreme Court judges. And of course, he put in right-wing judges. And now we're seeing the results of that. What's interesting, I read online, is that Trump isn't actually very supportive of this. A bit late for that now, but it seems that he thought this was a bad idea. I don't know if it's from, an ethical, he doesn't have any ethics, so it can't be from an ethical point of view. But I think he thinks this is bad for Republicans. And it could galvanize a support base, grassroots organizations to overturn this. The evangelicals for years have been pushing. We want to change the Senate. We want to put in senators that support our point of view. We want to put in congressmen and women who support our point of view. But for us, the icing on the cake is the Supreme Court. If we can flip the Supreme Court from its liberal leaning to conservative leaning, but even far right leaning, evangelical supporting Supreme Court, if we can have that, then we have succeeded in our goal. That's what they have been banging on for decades. This is why they have been donating millions of dollars to candidates for decades, eventually trying to get to the top level, of course, that being the Supreme Court. And you can't get to the Supreme Court unless you get the right president, you get the right Congress, the right Senate, and they have won a few, they have lost a few, but this is their final achievement. Now they have overturned Roe versus Wade, and they're celebrating. And it's just, there's nothing to celebrate here. These people are not pro-life, they're anti-women. I think it was the Buttons blog, could credit to him. Chris said on Discord just before I came on, and I saw I don't know if it was his original comment or not, but he said, for these people, life begins at conception. The sanctity of life begins at conception and ends at birth. Because as soon as you're born, they don't give a crap about you. As soon as you're born, we're not going to support you financially. We're not going to support you. We're not going to provide you with the means to live. We're not going to provide you with free housing or welfare or anything like that. No. As soon as you're born, you're on your own. Before you're born, we care about you. That's what they claim. But as soon as you're born, get a job. Stop living off the state. You're a parasite. This is what they say. These so-called Christians. And then when you reach the age of 18, don't worry, we'll have a war ready for you to go to. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Tories in meltdown, Bojo still Prime Minister, great for Indy. Yes. So I think we're going to be doing a bit of bouncing back between these two issues tonight. It was very interesting to see some of the reactions today. There was Nadine Dorries talking about World War II. I didn't see the whole thing, but I saw something about World War II. But then that's not Nadine Dorries. There was I forget what her name is now, it's slipped my mind, the Attorney General, who was suggesting this was a dirty electoral pact between Labour and the Lib Dems, forgetting, of course, that her party had an electoral pact with Nigel Farage back in 2019. And Farage had originally said, no, I'm going to field candidates in every constituency. That turned out to be a lie. He fielded candidates in constituencies where he thought they would win, which in some cases helped the Tories, in other cases it didn't help the Tories. But generally, because in some ways they split the vote for on the right, but in some ways they also helped the Tories because they siphoned votes off from traditional Labour voters, because it was at the time, remember, of Brexit, and there was a real fear that Labour might try to undo Brexit, and those Brexiteers who used to vote Labour and then switched to the Conservatives saw an opportunity with the Brexit party and said, well, Boris Johnson isn't Brexity enough for us, so we're going to vote for Nigel Farage's outfit. It didn't work out very well in regards to numbers of seats picked up, but it did serve a purpose, and it did help Johnson in some ways. It did hinder in others, but generally it's been seen as a boost. It helped Johnson because it damaged Labour, and but as we've seen, now that it's gone, you're starting to see a swing back to the traditional Labour versus Conservative, and it was not a very good night yesterday for Johnson. Is he going to go? No, he's not, because he's a narcissist. Look, there is going to be more and more clanging at the door, banging at the door for him to leave. And I think the number of MPs who are going to be calling for him to resign is going to edge up. But like before, give it a week and we won't be talking about it, and we'll be talking about something else, and Boris Johnson will be still banging on about how, he was right on all the big calls. He got Brexit done, got the vaccine rollout done, the fastest growing economy in the G7, stuff like that. So yes, in this moment we're feeling a bit high, following this election defeat for the Conservatives, But I have a fear, and I hope I'm wrong here, but I have a fear it'll sort of go back to normal in a couple of days' time, like it has done before. Or otherwise, there's enough anger within the Conservative Party to say, no, Johnson has to go now. And they're going to, there is an attempt at the moment to, so if you remember a couple of weeks ago, there was the vote of no confidence against Johnson, and he won it. But there was a significant number of MPs who voted to get rid of him. Now, it seems that they may be attempting to rewrite the rules, because the current rules are that he's safe for another 12 months. And it seems some of them want to rewrite the rules to change it to 6 months. So in about 5.5 months' time, there could be another vote of confidence in Johnson, and he may not be as lucky that time. But we'll have to wait and see. Stagehand, thanks so much for that super chat. Donut, I think you're saying don't not through with abortion. They're not through with. Sorry, my misreading. They're not through with abortion. They're going to say gay marriage next. Makes me so ashamed to say that I'm American. It has been getting ugly here for the last 20 years. Now it's at breaking point. Look, Stagehand, there's nothing. You have nothing to be ashamed of. This is not you. The nation is not you. You just happen to live there, or you were born there. In the same way that British people should not be ashamed about Brexit or Boris Johnson, as long as they don't support it. And I don't think you support the Republicans or the evangelicals here. And I agree with you. This is the first step. They've scored a massive victory, the evangelicals and the far right. They're coming for other rights after that. They're coming for gay marriage next. Oh, I can guarantee it. And, what really makes me sad is that there are conservative gay people who, got married 10 years ago, celebrated, and then started voting Republican. Because they felt comfortable, maybe. Or they felt, well, I don't like the Democrats coming after my taxes. And they don't realize that the Democrats may be coming after their taxes, which is not really the case, but that's what the right-wing media tell you. But the Republicans are coming for much more than that. And they'd be happy to make it illegal again. It may sound, that's not possible. Well, we didn't think this was possible. What happened today? And yes, I don't know where they'd stop. Would they try to introduce mandatory religion, for example? And which one? These people have they have no limits, and they don't say, okay, I've had enough and that's as far as I'm going. No, they will go as far as possible. And these people are unhinged, and they're backed by dirty, dark money. Some people are making some money out of this. Some people are benefiting politically out of this. And they're not always people who actually agree with what's happening. Republican congressmen and senators are for sure having their mistresses having abortions while, attending a mega church and praying with, the pastors or whoever, as the collection plate has been passed around to help donate to that Republican congressman or senator's campaign at the next election. This happens all the time. And it's disgusting. And the only way you change it is through the ballot box. But I'm really disappointed with people like Joe Biden who haven't pushed harder on getting... And look, maybe I'm demonstrating my ignorance here, but for example, there's Puerto Rico, there's Washington, D.C. If they were added as states, this would allow this would give the Democrats extra senators, and they would be able to override not the Supreme Court, but they would be able to override a lot of legislation that the Republicans are trying to push through. They would have a permanent majority, because Puerto Rico would vote Democrat, and DC has been voting Democrat for almost ever, I think, since its existence. as far as I know, they would get 2 senators each, but they don't get any senators because they're not states. Well, it's common knowledge in the US how, Wyoming has the same number of senators as, I don't know, a Democratic state with 5 times the population. But don't quote, because I'm quite ignorant. I just know the sort of high level stuff, not the details. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. We haven't won yet. I'm not sure what you mean there, number 3. Against Johnson and Co. I think Boris, if it's about Boris Johnson, I don't think that's going to be. Johnson's not going to go until the Conservatives push him out. But the problem for the Conservatives is there's no one to replace him. Liz Truss. Rishi Sunak. Well, he was flying high for a bit. Now he's like a lead balloon. There's no one really there to replace him, apart from people who would be a bit more pragmatic. But then, would they be able to command the support of the party? Yes, someone like Tobias Ellwood, not a big fan of him, but he's much more palatable than Johnson. But could he command support of Brexiteers? He talked about rejoining the single market. Would the ERG support someone like that? I don't think so. So if there is, in a way, Johnson is somewhat holding the party together. Yes, he's split the party, but I think anyone who would replace him would divide the party. Liz Truss maybe could be someone who could replace Johnson, but she wouldn't be able to. She might be able to hold the party together somewhat, but she wouldn't be able to campaign. She wouldn't be able to face down the Labour Party during PMQs. She isn't prime ministerial material. Yes, I know the Johnson isn't either, but the replacement you would expect should be. Thanks for that super chat. I'm not sure if I answered your question or not. Apologies. Max, Priti Patel for Prime Minister? No. No, I don't see that happening. But, I didn't think Boris Johnson could become Prime Minister, but the problem is Priti Patel is too polarising. So there are people in the Conservative Party who would not be very happy with her there. And I think Priti Patel as Prime Minister, can you imagine? I don't see her being elected Prime Minister. She could replace Johnson for a few months until there's a general election. But she'd be deeply unpopular. She's popular with racists and bigots, but that's about it, really. Max Truss is as thick as mince. Yes. TSOC. Her first meeting would be with the Irish TSOC. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to start off with this story. We got talking there a good bit. Thanks so much for all the super chats. Sorry. Number 3 sent me another super chat. Sorry, I just missed it. The UK judiciary is under attack. Yes. This human rights bill, not human rights, Bill of Rights bill that's been pushed through Parliament at the moment. I'm really fearful for that, because it's an attempt to replace the Human Rights Act. And when I was looking at some of the articles within it, it was talking about the abolition of the abolition of the death penalty. Now that's good, but it seems like a document that was copied and pasted from the past. The UK doesn't have the death penalty. It was abolished many years ago. It was abolished in the 1960s. So why is the Bill of Rights talking about abolition of the death penalty? That didn't make any sense to me. It seemed like, whoever put it together hadn't read it. They didn't proofread it first, which is concerning as well. But there isn't anything in it that really stood out as a problem. It said about protest, you should have the right to protest. I think the problem always will be the interpretation. But my biggest concern is also the step away from the European Court of Human Rights and the European Convention on Human Rights. This idea that, this is something that's built in to UK law and is fundamental to the Good Friday Agreement. You remove that, you undermine the Good Friday Agreement. And I don't see the UK government doing that, because it would put them in conflict with the United States. And other countries, which was mentioned in the post-stream chat as well, Canada is another country that took part, is not one of the bigger players, one of the smaller players, but I'm pretty sure that they were part of the peace process in Northern Ireland as well, and they would not be too happy with seeing the Good Friday Agreement undermined, just to keep racists and bigots happy in the United Kingdom. Let's be frank here, racists and bigots happy in England, because that's whose audience it's for. It's not for Scotland, it's not for Northern Ireland, it's not really for Wales. It's for racists and bigots in England. And this is not a criticism of England. This is a criticism of racists and bigots in England. This continuous attempt to pander to these people is damaging the UK. It's damaging the economy. It's damaging international relations. It's damaging the fabric of society in the UK as well. We've all heard stories about how levels of racist abuse increased following the referendum in 2016, where people felt it almost, now I'm free to be racist. Now I can wear it like a badge of honor. Now that I don't have to have my filter up when I go into the supermarket, or I'm waiting at the doctor's for an appointment at the doctor's. This is really sad, and this attempt to keep these types of people happy, or angry, as the case may be also, is really damaging. And I don't believe that is what real British people are. Cal, thanks so much for that super chat. Why does Stummers never say, you didn't answer the question at PMQs? Because he's not supposed... See, this is one of these problems with the House of Commons, is you're not asking the Prime Minister questions. If you notice when they speak, they say, Prime Minister, did you do this? So he's not asking directly to the Prime Minister. He's supposed to ask questions through the Speaker of the House. So he will say, Mr. Speaker, did the Prime Minister say this? Did the Prime Minister do that? And you're not... So according to these archaic rules, you're not supposed to speak to members of Parliament or ministers or the Prime Minister directly. You're supposed to speak through the Speaker of the House. And if you ask why, you didn't answer the question, or why didn't you answer the question, you would be breaking the rules in a sense. You'd have to frame it, why didn't the Prime Minister answer the question? And that would be directed at the Speaker. And then it's up to the Speaker to decide whether the Prime Minister answered the question or not. And it's not within the rules or the scope of the Speaker's abilities to ask the Prime Minister to answer the question or not. It's a ridiculous system, and it's, when you see it on display, you scratch your head saying, what the hell is going on here? And that's part of the problem, is that you can't call Boris Johnson a liar, for example. You can't call an MP a liar, or a minister a liar, or the Prime Minister one. And you can't speak to them directly. You have to speak through the Speaker. The Speaker we tend to believe the Speaker is like a referee. It's more like the Speaker is more like a moderator for the theatre, moderator for the room, not a moderator of language, not a moderator of speech, in the sense that he said, okay, you can speak, then you can speak. But what they actually say, the moderator can't interfere on, which is a problem, which needs to be reformed. But it's based on the idea that people would be honest, people would be honourable, the right honourable gentleman, the right honourable lady. The idea that if you're a member of Parliament, you are honourable, and you would not tell lies, or you would not try to mislead Parliament. It's built for another time and it needs reform. Thanks, Cahill. Max, do you expect the Tories to read it like the Northern Ireland Protocol? I have a feeling it'll go down the same way as the Northern Ireland Protocol. It's been used as an attempt. I think I'm answering your question, Magic. If not, let me know. You don't need to send a super chat; just send it in the chat. But what I think you're getting at here is that it'll be like Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol, where it'll be used as a threat, but they actually won't go ahead with it. And I think this is the same with the Bill of Rights. Now, there's two possible outcomes here. The Bill of Rights doesn't actually change anything, and it's exactly the same as the Human Rights Act 1998, or they just don't go through with it. They never actually push it through Parliament, because it could have its first, second and third reading, and then it comes to the point where Boris Johnson has the chance to send it for royal consent, royal assent, and then if he doesn't take that step, then it doesn't actually go anywhere. It doesn't become law. So it goes through all the steps, but it doesn't actually become law. That could be a possibility as well. Just doesn't get round to it. So it's used as a threat, and that's what I got the impression of what was happening back in 2020 and 2021 when it came to the Article 16. Yeah, we have all the criteria. The criteria has been met. The conditions have been met. Everything's ready to trigger Article 16, and they never did it. Why? Because they never intended to do it. It was always to be used as a threat. I think the problem was that they always thought they were negotiating. Oh, this is a negotiation with the EU, so we have to, threaten to do something. We're threatening to walk away. Remember when it came to Brexit? Yeah, we're going to walk away without a deal. And it was meant to be, this is not really a negotiation. It's coming to an agreement on what's going to happen after Brexit. So this is our withdrawal, the withdrawal agreement. It wasn't a withdrawal deal. It wasn't really a deal to be negotiated, because the EU said, this is what needs to happen, and this is what you have to do if we are to respect peace in Northern Ireland. And at the end, the UK more or less agreed to everything the EU asked for. There wasn't a real negotiation, but there was a theatre, the phony war. There was this attempt to pretend that there was negotiations going on. Why? Because they needed to convince Brexiteers that they were standing up to the EU, that we were on an equal footing. But it's like, you're leaving your job, and the boss says, these are the conditions of, the contract. You signed up to this before. This is what you get. And you tell your family back home, don't worry, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to negotiate something. I'm going to get a good deal for myself. And the conditions are already prepared. Not exactly a good analogy, but you probably get the picture. Thanks for that super chat, Majik. So I just wanted to touch on this story before we move on to the election results. Labour unveils plans to seek limited changes to Brexit deal. Okay. Labour has broken its long silence on Brexit, laying out detailed plans to improve, not scrap, the deal Boris Johnson struck with the EU in a move to concede. It concedes will enrage Remain supporters. And I said this before, the Labour Party know that they can piss off Remainers, but Remainers have nowhere else to go, unless it's the Liberal Democrats. But if you're in a seat that it's a toss-up between the Conservatives and Labour, you're going to vote Labour, even if you're a Remainer, and even if Labour said we're going to throw Remainers under a bus, big red bus. On the 6th anniversary of the Brexit referendum, the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy confirmed that the party will seek only limited changes and would not seek to rejoin the single market, which would bring the return of free movement, free trade and free movement of people. We're not going into a next election saying we will enter the single market or the EU. Now, look, this sounds like, oh no, it's a disaster. But I think this is a case of, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but I think what's happening here is he's trying to take Brexit off the table and say, look, we're going to do a general election and we're going to fight on bread and butter issues. We're not going to talk about Brexit. We're not going to fight on the issue of Brexit. It's too polarizing. But when we're in power, then you'll see, and look, and you know, I could be wrong here. Labour could win power and then do nothing about Brexit, or do what they're saying here about Brexit and not rejoin the single market and the customs union. But I imagine a scenario where Labour has a majority. I think they would work towards rejoining the single market and the customs union. And there would be pressure from businesses. You need to do something. We got the Tories out. You have to do something about Brexit. You know, businesses are struggling at the moment. When things are not getting better, they're getting worse. You have to do something. And we all know the solution. Everyone, the dogs in the street know the solution, rejoining the single market. Of course, the cost that comes with rejoining the single market is the return to freedom of movement, which is a big problem for racists and bigots. But if you have already won power, then you don't have to worry about winning these people over, because you've already got their vote. Roisin, thanks so much for that super chat. Anyway, it goes on. We're not going to go into the next election saying we will enter the single market or the EU. You might not like it, but Labour is determined to govern the entire country. He added, there cannot be a rehash of arguments made in Remainer constituencies like his in London. The British people have made a decision and we have to honour it. He told the UK in a Changing Europe annual conference. His remarks came just hours after former Brexit negotiator Lord Frost declared Brexit is working and said that those who said it was damaging the economy had an axe to grind. Yeah, David Frost lives on another planet, okay? David Frost is so invested in this cult that he can't deny it now. And I think maybe I don't want to suggest anything, but maybe there's a bit of a financial incentive for him to continue saying that Brexit was a good idea. Lamy pledged the party would seek to sign an agri-food agreement to restore visa-free business travel for touring musicians and performers, and seek to improve haulage arrangements. Look, some of these things maybe are possible, but they're not going to really have a big impact. Seek to improve haulage arrangements. Now, what the heck does that mean? Haulage arrangements. Look, rejoining the single market would improve haulage arrangements, but he doesn't want to do that. Maybe he's being a bit wishy-washy because it's for political reasons. I don't want to go into, if I go into detail, then I'm going to get bogged down and people are going to look at the detail and not look at the overall message. And maybe this is what he's trying to do. This could be a clever strategy. Don't talk too much about the detail, just say, this is what we're going to do. Improve haulage agreements. Who would be against that? So sell people things that are good. I'm for good things. I'm against bad things. How about my opponent? Well, my opponent obviously is for bad things, and I'm for good and against good things. It would also see seek to restore mutual recognition for professional qualifications such as accountants and architects, seal a deal on financial equivalence for the City of London, and secure associate membership of the EU's £80 billion Horizon Europe Science Funding Network, something the EU is delaying because of a row over the Northern Ireland Protocol. And see, this is the problem here, is that, yes, you can present something very good on paper, but as soon as you start looking at it, it starts to fall apart. Yes, we would like to have financial equivalence for the City of London. Yes, but then you need to agree that with the European Commission. And the European Commission say, okay, we'll give you this, but you'll have to give us something else in return. And this is where a sort of negotiation can begin. So this would be something you would definitely want to be talking about after you have won power, not before. I don't agree with being dishonest with the public. It's not about being dishonest, but the more you go into detail, the bigger the problem becomes. So you have to keep it very high level. I'm for good things. I'm against bad things. Maybe not that high level, but the idea that, yeah, we're going to improve Brexit, improve what's happening, sell the idea, yes, look, do I agree with it? I don't think so. I would prefer you're being honest, but I understand that a lot of people still think Brexit is a good idea. And you need to drive a wedge between them and the Tory party. So you need to offer them something. They're sad about what's happening, but they're not completely sold on the idea that Brexit is the problem. So don't sell them the idea that Brexit is the problem. Sell them the idea that, yes, we can make Brexit a bit better. Once again, I feel like I'm feeling a bit dirty here. I need to have a shower, but when I say these things, but I just get the impression that you need to tailor make the message to the voter, and telling people the truth about Brexit may not be the right way. Once again, I feel terrible saying that, but if you want to win elections, you have to sort of bend the rules a bit. But let me know in the comments, guys, if you do you think I'm right here? Do you think Lammy is right here? Is there a way for Brexit to work? Should you say yes, let's go down this road, or should he be saying no, Brexit is a disaster, it needs to be undone? Good idea for offshore bank accounts. Phil Morehouse did a video about this earlier today, which explains his thinking pretty well. I'll check that out. I haven't seen Phil's video today, so I will check that out. I wouldn't mind if we stopped talking Brexit and instead spoke about the referendum funding from our own banks. Yes. Make Brexit work. It goes on to say, Lammy was speaking just hours after Frost told the same conference that forecasts by the Office of Budget Responsibility were based on zombie figures, based on academic studies, which looked at the effects of opening up badly run ex-communist and ex-authoritarian autocratic economies. The EU leaders met to support Ukraine and Moldova with a plan to give them candidate membership status. Frost asked how long Brussels would continue to hassle and lecture Britain, and said the Conservatives had an option to take unilateral action to sort out Brexit in Northern Ireland. It's not sorting out Brexit. But Lammy said the EU was aching to restore relations, and that the government plans for laws to unpick the Brexit Treaty were reckless and hypocritical for a country calling on dictatorships around the world to follow the law. This protocol bill is a charter for lawlessness that serves the interests of those who want to weaken the rule of law. One of the most troubling aspects of all of this is the dangerous legal distortion that used to justify it. Once again, what does the Labour Party want to do here? Frost, ignore Frost. Frost is an idiot. Frost is a liar. Frost, used to be a Remainer. Then he jumped on board Boris Johnson's Brexit bus and became a Brexiteer. And he keeps banging on about things that he obviously doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the Northern Ireland situation, the Good Friday Agreement. And he just keeps blaming the EU. He's never actually said, I made a mistake. Isn't that interesting? Frost is the type of person who criticizes things that he negotiated and he signed, but he's never said, actually, I made a mistake. It's always, we underestimated the EU's position. or we thought that not I did. Of course, when it's taking the glory, but when it's talking about responsibility, it's we or they. It's never himself. Once again, I don't know how these people. How did he become a member of the House of Lords? Oh yes, because Boris Johnson put him there to serve a purpose that Dominic Cummings came up with. Put people into the House of Lords and they don't have to be elected, and you can tell them what to do. No. Okay. Anyway, to the election, the by-elections actually. The country would be better off, senior Tories urged Johnson to quit. So ex-leader Michael Howard among Conservatives to call for resignation after by-election catastrophes. Conservative grandees are urging Boris Johnson to quit after historic double by-election defeat as rebellious MPs begin plotting new ways to oust him. The former Conservative leader Michael Howard was among those who demanded the Prime Minister stand down after the losses in Teverton and Honiton and Wakefield, which prompted the immediate resignation of the party co-chair Oliver Dowden. In his resignation letter, widely circulated as a call to others to act, regarded as a call for others to act, Dowden told the Prime Minister, "We cannot carry on with business as usual. Someone must take responsibility." Obviously, that someone is the Prime Minister. Johnson's critics are hoping to secure a majority on the executive of the influential 1922 committee of Tory backbenchers in the hope that they can change the party rules to allow a fresh confidence vote without waiting for a year. Yeah, so under the current rules, you have to wait 12 months. Boris Johnson, would be okay for 12 months, but it wouldn't in reality be okay, because we saw with Theresa May, she won her confidence vote and then within a few months she was gone. As the scale of the two defeats sink in, both with the worse than expected swings against the Conservatives, a string of senior Tories added their voices to those calling for Johnson to go. Asked whether the Prime Minister should quit, Howard said, "I do. The party, and more importantly the country, would be better off under new leadership." But he probably still thinks it's Conservative Party leadership. Members of the Cabinet should very carefully consider their positions. It may be necessary for the executive of the 1922 committee to meet and to decide to change the rules so another leadership election could take place. The former Foreign Secretary Malcolm Rifkind suggested discontented ministers could act together to persuade Johnson to step aside. No, see, look, there's a way that you could trigger Johnson's fall. That would be for ministers to resign, but the ministers don't want to resign because they're all cowardly idiots. I was going to say something worse there. They're all cowards because they know that, well, what if I go and the others stay, that I'm gone and I'm on the outside and then I've destroyed my career. It would be better for us all to go together, but nobody wants to go. Nobody wants to be the organizer because then they could be pushed out. It's a snake pit. Okay. The loyalty to Johnson is not, apart from maybe Nadine Dorries, but the loyalty to Johnson is loyalty to power. It's not loyalty to the Prime Minister. And, they of course will defend Johnson to their dying breath, well, almost dying breath, because they want power, they want influence. They see Johnson as the boss that takes them to that destination, so they're riding it for as long as it goes. But the wheels are starting to come off, and they will stab him in the back. It always happens. But they don't want to be the first to do it because they could end up finding a knife in their own back. So they're cowardly. It's disgusting. Andrew Dowden, for example, the co-chair of the Conservative Party, a few weeks ago he was saying how Boris Johnson got all the big calls right on the vaccine, on Brexit, on levelling up. He was, turning the country around. Things were getting better. And then, following a failure at an election, he's like, okay, yeah, he has to go. How can you go from wonderful leader to he's crap in the space of a few weeks? That's not loyalty. That's loyalty to power. That's like, okay, I'm using Boris Johnson for as much as I can. I pretend to be loyal to him. And the problem also is that the voters think that these people are honest, that they're honourable, but they're not. Johnson was asked about this at a Sky when he was interviewed on, well, he was doing a press conference in Rwanda. He was in Rwanda, I think, giving a press conference, and he was asked whether he will resign or not, and he said, I have to get on with the job.
I know you've dismissed suggestions you'd resign as crazy and you intend to carry on and you won the confidence vote. But I imagine some colleagues back in London might be pretty astonished watching this press conference, given that you've been asked repeatedly and you don't seem to acknowledge that you could be part of the problem. You and your conduct could be part of the problem with voters. Why won't you acknowledge that? I mean, you're safe. You've won the confidence vote. Can you not just acknowledge that?
Let me try to give you the best answer I can, which is that, first of all, on Oliver, I think he did a lot of good work, particularly as chairman, but also as Secretary of State for DCMS, on broadband rollout, on veterans affairs and other things. I thank him for his service. But I'm genuinely don't think the way forward in British politics is to focus on issues of personalities, whether they are mine or others. The way forward is to make arguments to people about change and improvement that we are delivering. And that is what I want to do. I think the government has got some difficult stuff right. People are now going through a tough time. We understand that. I think that we have the best way forward. I think that we understand how to fix our economic issues.
Obviously not. If they thought you were going in the right direction, they wouldn't have delivered you a defeat, a massive defeat in these two by-elections. These by-elections are generally an attempt or a moment for voters to give the government a bloody nose. If the voters are angry with the government, the by-election is their conduit, is their outlet. So Boris Johnson can't come around and say, well, people want us to focus on, on the job that we're doing. No, obviously the job that you're doing is not a good job. Otherwise, they would have ignored what you would call, or what Jacob Rees-Mogg would call, fluff. They would say, I don't care about the fluff. I'm going to vote for Boris Johnson because he's doing a good job. Obviously, you're not doing a good job. Now, I don't know if Johnson himself thinks he's doing a good job and he just needs to convince everyone else, or he's just lying. But maybe it's the latter.
Is how to make sure that we have a stronger economy, and that is what we're going to achieve. I think some signs are promising, but I've got to be...
What? Inflation has not peaked yet. It's expected to hit 11% this year. It's currently at 9%. Promising signs. What was it? Promising signs like in 2 or 3 years' time? So if you're struggling to feed your family now, don't worry. In 2 or 3 years, things will get a bit better. A bit like Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Brexit benefits will arrive in 50 years' time. I don't know if Jacob Rees-Mogg will still be around when these Brexit benefits arrive.
I've got to be clear with people, as I was during the pandemic. I think it will take some time, and there will still be some tough times ahead. No doubt, Beth, people will continue to beat me up and say this or that about and to attack me. That's fine. That's quite right. That is.
Well, what is he talking about? Attack me? It's not so much about you. It's about your policies. What are you doing? It's not about what you say or what you are doing behind closed doors. It's about what are you doing for the country? Are you fixing this cost of living crisis? Are you providing people with the support they need? No, you're not. Your government is talking about lifting the cap on banker bonuses. There are people who can't afford to pay their bills. There are people striking because they want more money. And the government response is, no, you need to stay within this cap. And at the same time, yeah, we're considering lifting the cap on banker bonuses. Yeah, because they need more money. More than, somebody who's cleaning toilets at a railway station.
It's the job of politicians. In the end, voters, journalists, they have no one else to make their complaints to. I have to take that, but I also have to get on with the...
What? Is Boris Johnson the victim here? Yeah, you have people I have no one to complain to. I have to look in the mirror and say, you're a bad guy. What the hell is he talking about here? No one else to complain to.
The job of delivering for the people of this country, and that's what I was elected to do.
He's not going anywhere. Now, of course, the bad part of this is that if he left, perhaps somebody could come along and they could say, okay, we need to fix things. But things are not going to be fixed while Boris Johnson is in charge. He hasn't fixed things up to now. He's not going to fix them now. If Boris Johnson is not forced out, he will see this as him winning. And he will see this as, see, I was right. If they thought I was doing something wrong, they would have forced me out. They haven't forced me out, so I'm doing the right thing. So I'm going to continue doing the right thing, which is sweet FA. And he knows that he can get away with it. He has an 80-seat majority. If Boris Johnson had a 1 or 2 seat majority, he'd be acting in a very different way. Do you remember back in 2019, Boris Johnson was a very different character when he was before the election. He was very angry. He's very spiteful, but he was very limited in what he could do. That's why he was very angry and spiteful. He was not messing about. He was trying to do things, and he was getting a slap on the wrist each time. And remember the Benn Act, the one that forced him to go back to the EU to negotiate a deal. This was a huge embarrassment for Johnson, because he wanted to keep this no-deal Brexit on the back burner, because it was an attempt to keep angry Brexiteers happy. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. GBEU, Happy Independence Day, Max. Here to many more paper cuts, much more red tape, a United Ireland, and 2% cheaper. Happy British fish. Very happy fish, as Jacob Rees-Mogg once said. Yes, the red tape is going to increase. Boris Johnson's not doing anything about that either. The response from his government is, if you have a problem with red tape, set up in the EU. But how's that to help? No, that's our solution. Amsterdam is probably quite nice. Guys, so before we continue, I want to take a little comedy moment, comedy break. So I'll show you a funny video, and then we'll be back in just a second for some more serious stuff.
Well, no, listen, okay, the fact that you found me in a dance studio is a distraction. That's not me hiding from the media, okay? I'm not hiding from the media. I'm talking to you, the media, right now.
Do you support that suggestion that it's the media's fault that the Prime Minister has found himself in this position?
Well, yes, I do. I think that our Prime Minister is the most scrutinised politician in the whole world. That beats Vladimir Putin. Though admittedly, in Russia itself, they aren't allowed to scrutinise Vladimir Putin, and I think I rather envy them that. The loss in the by-elections, it was just a perfect storm because of the previous MPs being and distractions, the distractions of Partygate. The truth is, if you keep telling the public about awful things we've supposedly done, then I'm afraid that does influence the democratic vote, and that's not right. Obviously, Oliver Dowden's resignation is very sad. He's a very honourable man, but I think he just wanted to avoid this media scrutiny that we always get. I mean, there's in this building there's actually quite a lot of Tory MPs who were just reluctant to go through this again and again and again. Listen, I myself wasn't. That's why I'm speaking to you. I just came here to dance. Oh, you want to see the? No, I'm sorry. I'm camera shy, and I'm working.
Oh, Rosie. Some people think she's real. So let's go on. Boris Johnson joke wearing thin, says Lisa Nandy.
The Red Wall seat of Wakefield from the Conservatives in last night's by-election with a majority of almost 5,000. NHS worker Simon Lightwood will now represent the West Yorkshire city in the Commons. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has said that the vote shows the country, in his words, has lost confidence in the Tories. Well, we can speak now to the Shadow Levelling Up Secretary, Lisa Nandy. Lisa Nandy, good afternoon to you. A red brick back in the wall for Wakefield.
I think what's really significant for us about this result is we obviously had a great candidate and we ran a great campaign. And there was a lot of distaste for the Prime Minister that was reflected to us on the doorsteps. But this is our best result in Wakefield since 2001. It's our best ever result on current boundaries, more than a 12% swing, which, if replicated across the country, will put Labour on course to form a majority government. Of course, we're not complacent. We'll go out and fight for every vote, as we did in Wakefield, come the next election. But this is a big boost to us because we didn't just see people turning away from the Tories. We also felt very much a mood on the ground. I felt it yesterday when I was knocking on doors that people were looking to Labour again. And in many instances, they were saying, we really like what we see. We think this is a party that will back us and deliver for us in government in a way that the Tories just haven't done.
Well, 12% swing, you say, it is significant, but that was the same swing we saw when Labour won it back under Corbyn.
Well, we've had a storming result. There's just no way around it. We were quietly confident. We weren't complacent. You should have seen the effort yesterday. There were just teams out trying to get people to come out and vote. But crucially, what we were finding was that people often had already gone and done it. They liked Simon. They liked his message. But most of all, I think they just felt increasingly that the country can't go on with a government that doesn't back it.
At least she's been honest here. She is admitting that, in a sense, it was a protest vote. It was an attempt to give the government a bloody nose, and we saw this in the other constituency as well, in Toverton, or whatever you call it, and Hoverton. But in this case, the Liberal Democrats lost their deposit. And in the other constituency, the Labour Party lost their deposit, which is interesting because it meant that the tactical voting was amazing, because people were convinced, okay, in this constituency, in this one of Wakefield, I need to vote for the Labour Party. I need to vote for the Labour candidate. So people who would probably be more likely to vote for the Liberal Democrats in this constituency turned out for Labour, because they understood this is what we have to do. Now, this works in a by-election because you can focus a lot of attention on the by-election. It's very difficult to do it in a general election because people will normally come out and vote for the party that they normally vote for. The turnout, you can see here, 39% is very low, but you just need to turn out the people that's necessary. In a by-election, in a general election, more people will generally turn out, and you won't have as much control over how they will vote, in the sense that you won't be able to convince them to vote tactically. And this is a problem in the general election. It isn't such a problem in the by-election. Now, what would be wonderful is if there were 300 odd by-elections between now and 2024, then the Tories would be out of be in serious trouble. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. So don't look at swings like this. It's a wonderful result for both the Labour Party and the Lib Dems, but don't see it as indicative of what's going to happen at the general. Yes, polling is pointing to greater and greater support for the Labour Party, with the exception of everywhere, with the exception of Northern Ireland and Scotland, but it's not a slam dunk. Yes, the Labour Party have won it, and you can't really use these type of figures. to come to that determination. Tactical voting was I play, and I will play a massive part in the next one possibly. I think it will require both parties sitting down and understanding. It won't be necessary in every constituency, but it will be necessary in marginals. But there are a lot of marginals, and it's difficult to coordinate all of that. If you have one by-election or two by-elections, yeah, you can coordinate there. But if you have, many marginals, then it's much more difficult, and you risk, losing out, having a bad policy or a bad strategy where you end up splitting the vote, and you don't want that. So that was an interesting. I think Labour definitely want to maximise on this. It gives Keir Starmer a bit of a boost, but as I said at the beginning, and I don't want to be overly pessimistic, I'm afraid a lot of this is going to be old news within a week, and we'll be back to, will Boris Johnson ride out this wave once again? Hate to be pessimistic, but it's, we've been down this road before. So guys, I want to move on to the strikes. It's looking like the strikes are expanding. They started off with the rail workers. It's looking more likely that also drivers, teachers, barristers, and even members of the NHS may go on strike. It says here, London Underground workers vote for more strike action. More than 90% of RMT members have voted, who voted back further stoppages in dispute over pensions and job cuts. London Underground staff in the RMT union have voted to continue with strikes in a dispute over pensions and job cuts, potentially adding to disruption in a summer of industrial action on the transport network. And also we can include in this airline staff are planning to go on strike as well. A summer of discontent, I presume. Dudley, thanks so much for that super chat. Good news that Yahoo News reporting that our favourite 19th century MP Jacob Rees-Mogg on target to lose his seat at the next general election. Yeah, that would be wonderful. I would open a bottle of something. I don't know what would be the right thing to toast the defeat of Jacob Rees-Mogg. Brexiteer tears? I don't know. Can you get it bottled? Maybe you can. Something French. I don't know. So maybe somebody can come up with some drink, some bottle. And maybe I do a live stream. If Jacob Rees-Mogg lost his seat, Jacob Rees-Mogg has a special place in my heart, as you know. So if he lost his seat, it would have to a drink from the 1800s, Donny Port. Whiskey, maybe. Meat. Port, yes. EU wine. BT have been balloted. That's interesting. Boxed Brexiteers. Absinthe. Now, I don't know if he drinks absinthe. That has a particular effect on on people. Champagne in a plastic. Yes, in the plastic bottle. This was another Brexit benefit that Jacob Rees-Mogg came on. Pig's blood, maybe. Baileys. Ports. Wonderful, Chris. This is something. Damn it! Yes. Jacob Rees-Mogg came up with the idea that what we should do is we put champagne in I think it was champagne in plastic bottles. Okay, first of all, there's the environmental problem of all this bloody plastic, but second, there's a reason why they're in glass bottles and we don't put them in plastic. But apart from the traditional, but it's under a lot of pressure. They're put in with a lot of pressure. You'd have, plastic bottles exploding in restaurants. Not a very good idea. But then, Brexit wasn't a good idea. And Jacob Rees-Mogg just pulls things out of his hat. You know, oh, I have a new idea. Maybe it's something he read off the Sun. The Freckle Pony, thanks so much for that super chat. Back to the 70s. Half of the 70s was under the Tories. Yes. Yes. And the 70s were not, you know, the music was good, but the fashion was terrible. And the streets were really... If you ever see any pictures, any video from the 1970s, look at the streets. They're extremely dirty. People, you know, back in the 70s, people used to throw rubbish out of their windows as they were driving their cars. That's what people used to do back in the 1970s. Okay, now, I'm somebody from the 70s. I was born in the 70s, the late 70s. So you know, I can criticize the 70s, but you don't want to go back there. Thanks, Freckle Punny. Whatever Victorian he drinks will have a high mercury content. Something with mercury. Just, a champagne bomb. Anyway, back to the unions. More than 90% of the union's members on the tube who voted on a 53% turnout backed further walkouts as the RMT leadership continued to talk with Network Rail and train operating companies to resolve the national rail standoff. The RMT was legally required to obtain support to renew its mandate for strikes after the latest 24-hour stoppage on Tuesday closed virtually all tube stations in the capital. Services in the capital. Transport for London, TfL, is seeking to cut just over 10% of frontline staff by not filling vacancies as they arise, as well as reviewing the pension scheme, a condition of the emergency funding agreed with the Department of Transport after fare revenue dried up during the pandemic. This is a very bad situation. What's happened is, in one sense, the government gave money to these rail operators to continue operating during the pandemic. But you haven't seen the same number of people return as we had before the pandemic. And what's happening is these operators have less money. Now, if they were completely nationalized, then you could run them at a loss. And you wouldn't have to worry about laying people off, because it wouldn't be profit driven. But it is profit driven, so these companies will decide to lay people off because they can't afford to keep them on. The RMT General Secretary Michael Lynch said the vote proves that the arguments RMT have been making are endorsed by tube workers, adding that the TfL and the Mayor of London need to seriously rethink their plans. He added, "We are acutely aware of the funding cuts being foisted upon the TfL by the Westminster government. However, Mayor Sadiq Khan should not be trying to sacrifice our members' pensions and jobs to fit within budget restraints laid down by Boris Johnson." So yeah, the City of London, sorry, not the city, but London itself is struggling, and they receive funding, a certain amount of funding from Westminster. And it's not enough, it seems. And the Mayor of London can do very little about that. He can try and borrow, but then he's been trying to reduce the debt that Boris Johnson left behind when he was Mayor of London. So he's in a no-win scenario. If he borrows money, he's going to add extra problems for the budget, for his for the finances of the city. But then if he cuts jobs, he's going to be extremely unpopular, and he'll be replaced by a Tory probably the next time. It's a very difficult situation, and you know, my heart goes out to the workers as well, because they have not had a pay increase for years, and they're struggling at the moment as well. They're struggling to pay their bills, to feed their families. They want better working conditions. They want some more money. They want their pensions protected, because when they eventually stop working, they want to have something, and they risk not having anything and having to continue to work until death, basically. Something I think there's a real risk here, positive or negative, but there is a real chance that more and more people are going to go on strike, because they're going to see, well, if those people are striking and they're getting something, then we should do the same. Did love it when the Irish announced a 10% wage increase for Irish rail workers this week, solidarity with RMT, and a thumbed nose at Johnson and Company. Yes, I saw that. It was in Irish media that the Irish Rail Network operator gave a 10% pay increase to staff to help them deal with the cost of living. The cost of living is everywhere, and if you have an extra 10%, it can help you deal, because inflation is running at pretty much that. So you're not gaining a lot, but you're at least keeping your head above water. You're not getting any poorer. And that has to be the main thing. No power cut today. Yes. Shh. Be quiet. I don't actually. I tried to investigate. It was actually a problem all over the town. So I'm in a little town. I looked outside and all the lights were off. So it was not just me. Okay. It was not a Russian attack. Oh no! I better keep my mouth shut. Tempting fate there. Mick Lynch is an interesting character in all of this. Now, look, I'm not going to touch the point. Look, I think we've all heard that he's a Brexiteer. And I'm not going to attack him on being a Brexiteer. I had considered doing a video about this, but it is a bit pointless because he's not in the driving seat. He's not elected to public office. Thanks, Dudley, for that super chat. He's not influencing government policy in any way. Now, I am critical of the RMT back in 2016. They told their members to vote for Brexit. And that was a huge mistake. And, Mick Lynch still thinks Brexit is a good idea. I don't know why. Brexit is causing a lot of problems for people within his union. I really don't understand why he still supports Brexit. Maybe it's an anti-EU thing, but I'm not going to get into that because he's fighting a very good fight, and congratulations to him for doing that, and kudos to him, and I fully support him in that. When it comes to Brexit, we'll have to park that because we have a very different opinion. But it says here, Mick Lynch's PR war is key to determining if rail strikes will succeed. As commuters struggled with strike-crippled railways this week, Mick Lynch, the General Secretary of the RMT Union, established himself as a central figure in the raucous public relations battle. Shuttling between picket lines and TV studios, the previously little-known union boss garnered a cult following online for his cool performances, justifying his members' claims on pay and conditions, while Conservative opponents attacked the RMT in more heated terms. The PR war could determine whether the government is able to resist a wave of public sector pay claims in months to come. The Tory MP Tobias Ellwood claimed the strike action was playing into Russia's hands and urged the unions, "Don't be Putin's friend." The Sun's front page Wednesday declared a class war, and when Labour MPs joined pickets, Boris Johnson accused the opposition of wanting to take Britain back to the 1970s. Look, in a sense, I believe that if it's not so much Mick Lynch, but it's what these first round of strikes achieve. If they're able to achieve their goals of protecting the workers, getting mandatory or compulsory redundancies off the table, and some sort of pay increase, a reasonable pay increase, if they're able to succeed there, then the Tories are defeated. Because what will happen is, as I said, other unions and other workers will look at this and say, well, if they achieve that, then we can achieve it too. We just need to be strong. We need to resist the government, resist the companies, hold out, and then we can get it. And if you start to see more and more workers getting better paying conditions, of course you're going to jump on board as well. Who doesn't want better working conditions? So it will be of course, the government will try and destroy this, and they have been doing it, either in the media directly or through their friends in the media, like The Sun, for example, declaring a class war. It goes on to say, but Lynch did not argue back with the tub-thumping tone of Arthur Scargill, a Union baron predecessor from the last century when inflation was last this high. Instead, he evinced calmness, stemming perhaps from confidence that the biggest rail strikes in 30 years are not causing huge public anger. Yeah, so he knows that the public are for now on his side. This was not the case back in the 1970s. Clips of him disarming fulminating TV interviewers went viral. He informed Richard Medley on ITV's Good Morning Britain that he was talking twaddle. When asked if he was going into a revolution to bring down capitalism on Sky News, he told Kay Burley she was gone off into a world of the surreal. When she asked if the picket could turn into a 1980s miners' strike, which descended into violence with police. I'm a working class bloke leading a trade union dispute about jobs, pay and conditions of service, he said, as he became a social media hero for many, garnering millions of clicks and celebrity endorsements from the likes of Hugh Laurie and Irvine Welsh. But has the RMT won the battle for public opinion outside the social media world? Conversations on Euston Concourse on the second day of the strike suggested that the union had not lost the public. For every person like Savannah, 24, a recruitment consultant who thought the strike was a liberty given its effect on the public, there were more like Fergal Spencer, a teacher, who said it should now show people they can try and fight for a better deal. And Rachel Grundy, 30, who said everyone deserves a fair wage. RMT pickers reportedly been surprised with that the reaction was not more critical. Yeah, at the moment, people, the difference here is that it's difficult for the Tories to drive a wedge between the public and the workers here, because everyone is struggling apart from Tory MPs and Conservative MPs in general, MPs and members of the House of Lords and multimillionaires and people who own newspapers. They're not struggling during this cost of living crisis. So it's difficult for them to drive a wedge between the workers and the ordinary people, because the ordinary people are struggling as well. They're not working on the railways, but they understand what it means to struggle during the cost of living crisis, and they see these people fighting back and maybe getting something, then they're going to cheer them on, or at least believe they're doing the right thing. Mick Lynch was handed the press the way I wish opposition. He has been brilliant. Yeah, apart from the Brexit thing, I would love to see. Mick Lynch just for one day opposite Boris Johnson during Prime Minister's questions. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Keir Starmer says, I can't come in today. I'm feeling a bit ill, but I've sent my replacement. His name is the Right Honourable Mick Lynch. It would be epic. And I think the Speaker of the House would have some problems keeping the ruckus under control. Johnson probably wouldn't turn up, actually. Or he'd walk out. It'd be wonderful to see. Can we stand up and fight for our rights? What a novel concept, yes. The Independent stated Mick Lynch, owned by Baron Lebedev, owns Lebedev Holdings Limited, which in turn owns the Evening Standard, TV channel London Live. Slated of course. I saw how even Sky News were trying to break him down. The ridiculous interview with Piers Morgan, absolutely cringe-inducing, I should say. Corporations have more rights and financial support in the UK compared to its citizens. It's subjects, not citizens. Johnson definitely won't turn up. That's the last time I'm buying the eye. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream for tonight. Just want to finish, of course, with what's happening in the US with Roe versus Wade.
What does this mean for women in America?
So this is Sky News speaking to Andrea Ocasio-Cortez. She's a Democratic representative in the a Congresswoman in the House of Representatives, and obviously on the side of women here.
Women, what does this mean for women in America?
Well, many of us, or all of us, are waking up with less rights today than we did yesterday. But particularly, we're talking about a court that has historically low confidence levels from the American public, a majority of whom have been, or many of whom have been, majority of whom have been appointed by a party that has not won a popular vote election, more than once in the last 30 years.
How do you feel towards those judges, if you can explain?
I don't even think that it's about a personal feeling towards the justices. I think that this is really about an overall system.
Do you worry about same-sex marriage? There was a line.
Absolutely. I absolutely do. I absolutely do worry about same-sex marriage. I worry about the policing of all sex acts in general. In the state of Texas, at the time what was called anti-sodomy laws were overturned on the basis of the right to privacy established by Roe v. Wade.
So it's like, once again, the Republicans, as I said at the beginning of the stream, the Republicans and their friends in the evangelical movement, the evangelicals are organizing the funding. They hand it over to the Republican candidates for office, and that helps them win their campaigns. And then, of course, they hand something back. And it has always been, work at every level, the state level, the county level, the state level, the federal level. Get our people into Congress, get our people into the Senate, get our people into the Supreme Court. The presidency, if it's a bonus, but the real power is in the Supreme Court. Presidents come and go. Supreme Court justices stay there for a long frigging time. That needs to be reformed. Why are there Supreme Court justices there for all of their life? Why don't they serve a term? This is a huge problem. And the only benefit that could come from this is that there will be a massive pushback, that women voters and their supporters, pro-choice people, will come out and vote this year in November to throw the Republicans out, to give the Republicans a bloody nose, to overturn, to kick as many Republicans out of the Senate and out of the Congress as possible. Now, normally, at the midterms, the president's party loses. So every 2 years, the 2 years after you have a new president, the sitting president loses the Congress normally. Hopefully that will not be the case this time. Hopefully this will be an issue that will galvanize support for kicking the Republicans out. But then we'll have to wait and see. Just a bit more on this. It says here, so where are abortions now banned? It says in 9 states bans on abortion took place in effect today following the ruling. These include Alabama, Arkansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Utah, and Wisconsin. In other states, bans on abortion in most cases will take into effect in 30 days. And in some others, legislators and legal bodies will determine how to proceed, convening to legislate new restrictions to provide guidance on previous enforcement abortion restrictions. Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House of Representatives, is pretty much like the UK Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, an absolute chocolate teapot. She read out a poem. this woman should have been replaced by somebody a bit more forthright some time ago. Anyway, it goes on to say here, afternoon summary, it says here, President Joe Biden condemned the ruling, calling it a sad day for the court and for the country. Donald Trump, who as president installed three of the justices that voted to strike down Roe v. Wade, reportedly didn't think the ruling is a good idea. Wow. So Trump, who's responsible basically for this, thinks it was a bad idea. Because he thinks, I was hoping to run in 2024. Now you have all these angry women and they're going to vote against me. Damn. That's probably why. Not that he cares about abortion. You know, he if his daughter needs one, or one of his many wives needs one, they can be just sent to, to whatever state, or they can just fly to Europe and get it done. Money is no problem there. Like Republican senators and congressmen as well. States nationwide are scrambling to react to the decision, with many Republican-led governments moving to ban abortion immediately. West Coast governors pledged their states would be safe havens for abortion access. This is really splitting the country in two. A Republican senator said she was duped by two of the Supreme Court justices who said she supported while insisting they would respect Roe v. Wade. I think I know that woman. She's one who is a more moderate, if you could call it, Republican, who supported... Remember, one of these justices needed the backing of Congress and the Senate. Protesters are gathering at the Supreme Court building in Washington, D.C. Among the conservative justices, there was a slight difference of opinion on how far the abortion ruling should go. Congress approved a bipartisan gun control compromise, sending the bill to Biden for his signature. Once again, this idea that guns have more rights than women have in the US at the moment. And it's quite sad, because the people once again affected by these rules will be the poor. They won't have access to these services. Rich people will. If the daughters or wives or partners or mistresses or whatever of rich politicians or rich individuals can send their the lady in their life to another state or outside the US and have an abortion. They don't have a problem. These are the people who are creating these restrictions. They will not be impacted by them. It's like, Tories voting against free school meals. They don't need the free school meals, but they know other people do, and they'll vote to get rid of them. It's the worst thing about these politicians. It's not that they're voting to make themselves poorer or their own lives more miserable. They're voting to make other people's lives miserable. And these pro-life people, my God, they're not pro-life, they're anti-woman. Because all of these pro-life people, as soon as someone is born, what is the response? Oh, we shouldn't spend money. Oh, they're lazy. Oh, you should get a job. Oh, you don't have your parents should get a job. They should be looking after you. It shouldn't be the state. Why should I be paying my taxes to look after you? This is the response from all of these so-called pro-life people. They're not pro-life, and most of them are pro-war as well. They're happy to see soldiers at the age of 18 or less go off to war and get slaughtered. How's that pro-life? Anti-healthcare, especially in the US. These people are, get your socialism off my healthcare and stuff like that. Off my Medicare, whatever it is. Get your government, government hands off my healthcare, my Medicare. Trump's mom is against abortion. What a pity. Yes. A condom could have saved all these problems. I've said the same about, what's his name? Boris Johnson's father. A condom could have saved so many problems. They're anti-choice. Yes. Republicans probably support pro-life in order to ensure adequate cannon fodder for the God-given arms without depopulating the country. Yes. fully automatic arms. Yeah, you know, we want more people to be sent into battle, so we need to force people to have to fulfill the pregnancy. George Carlin done a great joke about pro-life lobby years ago, and he was spot on way back then. Yes, George Carlin is one of my heroes, if you didn't know already. And he came up with the phrase, you know, they're not pro-life, they're anti-woman. That's what they are. And if you ask, and look, I'm willing, if any of you have anyone who's so-called pro-life and they'd like to have a debate with me, I swear to God, I will tear them a new one. I swear to God. I'm not great at debating. Even if it's Brexit or things like that, I'm more into just asking questions, trying to understand people's point of view. But when it comes to this particular issue, it really pisses me off because a lot of these people are dishonest because they do not care about women. They don't care about the children. They would happily see these children dumped on the street as soon as they're born because they wouldn't like to spend the money, the taxes to look after them. They're hypocrites. They're scumbags. Mike Pence pushed the Supreme Court stuffing. He wanted and he almost got his comeuppance. Mike Pence on the 6th of January last year. You know, that's the people he was getting into bed with. Louis C.K. does an amazing bit on abortion. I'll check that out. The extreme right Republicans, DUP, Tories, they talk about freedom, but it's just the freedom to be racist, xenophobic, homophobic, or to foist their religious beliefs on everyone. Well said. George Carlin said, think how stupid the average person is, then realize half of them are stupider than that. Yes. And they vote. That's the bloody problem, people. They vote. Didn't one of Trump's mistresses have an abortion allegedly? You know, but these people, once again, these people didn't care if Donald Trump daughter had an abortion. They didn't care about that. They cared about power. They saw him. These people, they even said it. They said, we don't care if Donald Trump is having affairs with porn stars, or if he's funneling money to the Saudis, if he's building apartment blocks in Jerusalem and then moving the embassy there and pissing off both sides. Doesn't matter he is our guy to get us to the Supreme Court, to get our golden ticket, and the golden ticket is striking down Roe v. Wade. That was their objective all along. They didn't hide it. They were very clear about it. And politicians have made careers and millions out of this. Isn't abortion illegal in Poland? Aren't the Europeans a bit arrogant to be criticized in the US over while ignoring their own? Well, it's not. I think when it comes to Poland, there has been pressure on the Polish government to provide. But these are constitutional issues as well. Like Ireland didn't. Abortion was illegal in Ireland until recently. It required an amendment to the constitution. So these things, it's not some, but this is about. I think it's a bit more complicated than just saying, well, Europe shouldn't criticize the US, and I don't think the European Union in an official way has criticized the US over this. Many people confuse the EU and EU member states. There will be members of, like Boris Johnson has said it was a mistake, and kudos to Boris Johnson. Record that if you like. Well done, Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson came out and he said this was a step backwards. I don't agree with this, and he actually went further and he said we have put in legislation to make sure that women all over the United Kingdom have access to these services. Now, that was interesting because he went a bit further than he didn't have to, but he said all over the UK, which includes Northern Ireland, whereas the DUP, who have been trying to block it, and the DUP are like Trumpists in Northern Ireland, maybe even worse than Trumpists, I'm not sure. They are anti-abortion. They are anti-woman in Northern Ireland. So they have been pushing against it. And kudos to, once again, I when somebody does something right, I'll call them out on that. I'll congratulate them. Boris Johnson, well done. And Brandon Lewis for saying, yeah, we're going to stand up for women's rights in Northern Ireland. Now, when it comes to that, kudos. When it comes to looking after the poor, they're absolute bastards. Okay, but you know, where somebody does something right, well done. If they do something wrong, I'm going to criticize them, and I'm not being hypocritical. They actually lied to Congress about would they repeal Roe when going to become justice jobs. Yes, I remember. What's his name? Wasn't it the last guy? Sort of dodgy guy who got drunk and, you know, fondled women and stuff. Didn't he say that he wasn't going to overturn it, and then they overturned it. But then they can't be voted out. That's the problem. But they are going to be there until they die or until they resign. That's the problem. This is the big problem. You can change the president. You can change the Congress. You can change the Senate. But you can't change the Supreme Court until somebody dies. And some of them are not very old. Kavanagh, yes. Oh my God, I'm getting a bit animated now, so I'll have to call it a night. It's a sad day for America, but I do hope that from the ashes something can be salvaged. I do hope that this is going to create a groundswell of support. And I think we have seen it before, where the Republicans thought, yeah, we're going to go down this road, we're going to score a victory, and then it came back to bite them on the arse. And I hope this is what's going to happen in November. There are midterm elections in US, in America in November, and I hope the Republicans get their arses handed to them. I really hope there is a pushback, and they realize, okay, yeah, we can be on the side of the evangelicals, but it doesn't really pay the bills. So guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you next Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. Take care, have a great weekend, and if you're on Discord, if you're a patron, I'll see you on Discord after the stream. If not, I'll see you next Tuesday. But before we finish, we always have our one for the road.
Yes, it's true we've had some bad results in these by-elections. In fact, I haven't been so disappointed by a result since Carrie's last pregnancy test. As a government, I have to listen to what people are saying, because I am the government. Would we really have a government without me? Worth having? Look, people are saying that they're worried about the cost of living crisis, that I'm awful, that they want us to cut taxes, and I think it's important that we listen to at least 2/3 of their concerns. I don't want to minimise these results, but it has to be said that governments always lose elections in the midterm. And in the greater scheme of things, when you look at these results, they're actually rather small. And I say that without minimising them. I think what most voters are thinking is, look, we got through COVID, okay? We got all of the big calls right. I'm extremely handsome and capable. Sorry, did I say that's what voters were thinking? That's actually what I'm thinking. Look, these by-elections are simply the result of a perfect storm. A terrible Prime Minister, terrible policies, terrible cabinet, and terrible candidates. Plus inflation. There have been a lot of distractions, unhelpful stories about parties in Downing Street, etc. And the thing is, if nobody had heard about these parties, nobody would have cared. I'm not blaming the media. I'm just saying that if you only reported the things that we wanted you to, everyone would be happier. I mean, think about it. Did people enjoy hearing about those parties? No. Many people got very angry and upset. So why tell them? Ignorance is bliss. Just ask Nadine, or Dominic, or Suella. Well, you get the idea. What I really need now is a strong chief of staff, like, I don't know, my wife. Oh, maybe that's against the ministerial code. Just give me a sec. Not anymore. Yes, this country is going through a difficult patch. We are forecast to have the lowest growth in the G20, apart from Russia. But to be fair, we are both fighting a war in Ukraine. I think it's very kind of Oliver Dowden to resign and take responsibility for these results, because that is the one thing we kept hearing over and over again on the doorstep of Tiverton and Honiton and Wakefield. Get rid of Oliver Dowden, they cried, once we'd explained who he was. Just because I'm here in Rwanda doesn't mean I'm trying to avoid the issue. But on the other hand, we have just paid them £120 million. I wonder if there's some way I could apply for a sort of platinum asylum.
Platinum asylum. Wonderful, wonderful, Matt. So have a great weekend, guys. Thanks so much for everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for all of the super chats. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. And I'll see you all next Tuesday. Same bad time, same bad channel. Take care. Have a great weekend. Good night.